Second last.
Second last Messier minutes. We have 5 today and 4. We're down to like less than 10. Has everybody actually observed the 100 we've gone through so far?
Yeah. So I don't remember the date, but we actually started Messier Minutes with autumn targets. So what we've done now is you've gone full cycle, and we're ready to finish the I guess 12 or so that we missed.
The exact date we started Messier Minutes was February 1st, was the first one we went through. And we did some autumn targets that you could catch in the early evening. So
that's right.
If you are looking for Messiers to view right now, and because we're getting to the autumn, go back to the beginning of the series we did and see what we talked about there. We don't talk about what you are up right now. And with that, let's start.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So the Messier Minutes, you can think of it, don't think of it more as to the date, the month and year we uploaded it. Think of it just in terms of the month and date, not the year, because it's perpetually recycled. All right.
And each Messier Guides has the week based on what we did it, so you can go back and see the days that we looked at them. It's all there in the link I shared in the chat.
So I'll just start out by pointing something interesting. So this is the stellarium chart for this evening around 11 p.m. with symbols on all the only on the Messier objects with their names and designations. And you might notice that there's our friend Jupiter sitting there in the middle. There's a kind of a gap with no Messier objects in it. And that gap is the reason that the Messier Marathon works. So there's a time of the year when the sun is sitting in this gap when you can catch, these ones before dawn, and you can catch these ones after sunset and not miss any others because there aren't any beside the sun. So that's where the Messier Marathon works. So we're actually, when John designed the 110 Things book, we worked with the order of objects to view, and he started the book off with autumn because he was thinking of the Messier Marathon, how it, it kicks off, kind of kicks there's that gap, and you can get into the autumn targets and move through the year that way. So here we are at towards the end of September. We've got a moon in the sky this week, but these objects will be around for a while, so you can catch them now or wait till the moon disappears. Most of these objects are quite bright though, so the moon is not going to bother us very much at all. I'm just going to switch stellarium to show the designations. So we'll get here we go. Here we go. So now I've got the M numbers showing up. First up, I've got M15. M15 is up here over the southern horizon around 11 o'clock, but of course it's a little bit to the east of the meridian in the late evening. And this is a globular cluster, and it's kind of like the oat bag that Pegasus is munching on. So Pegasus is the horse, he's upside down. This is his neck, his ear or eye, and then his muzzle with the star Enif. And then he's munching on this nice flower or globular cluster, however you want to think of it. So this is really an autumn showpiece, Messier 15. It's relatively bright, magnitude 6.3. You can see it in binoculars on a dark night. You can see it in any size of a telescope. It's easy to find by using that line between Pegasus's eye and his tip of his nose, and just basically jumping another half of that span in that same direction. Basically what you're doing, Pegasus sort of rotates around as the sky rotates through the year. So essentially you're going to be heading towards Albireo. So there's Albireo, there's the summer triangle. So just if you find NF, then just remember that M15 is towards the summer triangle side of that star.
Just a quick correction. We mentioned the moon was up because I think you got confused because your bookmark was on a different date. The moon is actually in the waxing crescent phase, evening sky, but there's not much of a moon for the next week.
Yeah.
So you'll be
I may have pointed at the moon, but my words were referring to the tonight's.
Yeah. Sorry, just wanted to make sure everybody was.
Yeah. Here we are back to tonight. Yeah.
There we go. See, it doesn't change that much.
No.
Yeah. So the moon will be up in the evening sky, but it won't be full, unlike it was a couple weeks ago.
All right. So yes. So as I said, you can find it by extending that line up past NF. When you're there, I'll just bring it up in the telescope view here. This is simulating a 6-inch Dobsonian reflector with a 26mm Plossl eyepiece. You can look for kind of a triangle of field stars bracketing it. Check out the cluster shape. You want to note that. You'll probably notice that its core is very dense. It has a collapsed core. We talked about globular clusters a couple of months ago. And then you want to crank up the power. So if you want to be able to peer inside the center of the core, you really need to increase the magnification. Look and see if you see any differences in the star colors. And while you're looking, think about the fact that there is possibly a black hole in the center of that collapsed core globular cluster. It's really a cool object. It's 32,000 light years away from us. That's M15. M2, and again, these are great objects for the suburbs. They're bright enough to see, on your driveway in the suburbs. So M2 is another showpiece. It's large, it's bright, visible in binoculars, any telescope. It's kind of in an empty patch of the sky, though, unfortunately. What I use is I go 2/3 of the way from NF to Saddle Sud. So if you've still got NF in your mind from looking at M15, you want to sort of come down this way and see if you can find Saddle Sud, which is part of Aquarius, and it's kind of on that line connecting them. So yeah, about 2/3 of the way along that line. And again, big enough to see in binoculars, so you should be able to have no problem finding it. If you are using binoculars, they'll actually share the same field of view. So you can actually put the star and the cluster in the binoculars together. You want to look and see whether you notice that it has a non-round shape. So it's got some surrounding streams of stars that you might see extending outwards, maybe like octopus tentacles or something like that. Again, crank up the magnification to try to delve into the center of the cluster a little bit more. You want to look for, see if you notice any stars of different colors. Again, note the density profile. And this one is actually known to host 21 variable stars, Cepheids, RR Lyrae, and RV Tauri variable stars in this globular cluster, 39,000 light years. So that was fitting that we're looking at this one today. That's M2. Heading downwards, and I'm going down, I'm looking at the higher ones first because they'll be higher in the sky in early evening. And these lower ones take a bit longer to climb higher. So tackle these M15 and 2 first, and then dive into the last 3. So we've got M73 and M72, which are sitting up here above Capricornus. And when I see these stars in the sky, I always sort of think of a bikini bottom. So I don't know that's different, but that's what I see. And this year, Saturn is sitting just tucked above the waistband of the bikini. So that'll get you into the neighborhood. And these two objects, one is a globular cluster, one is an open cluster, sort of. They actually share binoculars field of view. I think they may even share the eyepiece at low magnification. So M73 is actually kind of a disappointed. It's not a deep sky object, it's an asterism. Messier thought he perhaps saw some nebulosity around this little Y-shaped set of stars. And so he put it on his list. But yeah, it's not gonna break any records for deep sky in that case.
So is it actually because it says open star cluster on this. Is it an open star cluster or just it looks like one?
Well, it's categorized as an open star cluster here in Stellarium, but if you look up the data on it, some sources consider it just an asterism, a line of sight. The stars are at different distances away. They just happen to be aligned, so we can see them in a clump. Yeah, and you'll want to crank up the magnification, so you can see that this is the same field of view I used for M2 and M15, and it's barely noticeable in the center of the view. So you really want to crank it up to about 100 times 100x to really see it. Where is it? It's about a thumb's width apart from M72. And the way I sort of would guide you is to use Theta Capricorni to Albulans. So where are we here? This should be, so from this star down to Theta. So this is Theta over here. So if you start at Theta with the star that's near Saturn, then it's sort of near that line connecting that to the fingertips of Aquarius, the western fingertips of Aquarius. So what you can do when you've got it in your sights is you can, describe to the stars, all look the same. Do you see brightness differences, color differences? Note anything around the object, and that sort of a thing.
I was just looking at a picture we took of it in our robotic telescope, and it's very underwhelming. Like, you could easily pass by it. So that might be a warning for people looking for it, that it's very small, even with the the narrower field of view we have with our robotic telescope.
Yeah, that's a good reason to have a little bit of context and know what to expect to find around these objects. Okay, M72 is definitely worth going for. It's another globular cluster, much smaller than the first two I talked about, though. It's very far away, 54,000 plus light years away. You won't be able to get this one really in binoculars, but you'll want to use any size of a telescope. Small telescope will work. Small telescopes will see it as a fuzzy patch. A medium aperture telescope will start to resolve the globular cluster form of it. But you really need a 10-inch or something like that to see resolved stars in the cluster. It's pretty small and distant. As I mentioned, you can again sort of use some of these bikini stars to find it. So again, if you start at Theta, if you find M73, then you could just nick a little bit to the west for M72, or you could use the belly button of the bikinis and going up, and it's on that line connecting those two stars. So you'll probably notice also that it doesn't have a very dense core. It's quite a sparse cluster when you start magnifying it. And you'll want to say remark on any field stars you see around it. Any general ideas about the shape, that kind of thing. Okay, and our last one is down here below Saturn. So this is only good for this year because Saturn will be here next year. But for this year, we have Saturn and Vesta in the neighborhood of M30. M30 is the object that we can't really get in the Messier Marathon. Just the geometry for Canada makes seeing Messier 30 nearly impossible. So
we didn't even get it.
Yeah,
it's probably on our telescope.
Yeah, it's going to be the one that got away typically. But hey, take a look at it when it is in the sky. Because it's rather low, it's a tricky one for Canadians. It doesn't rise very high in the sky. It's only, for Toronto, it's only culminating at 22 degrees towards midnight. If you can see the star Fomalhaut in Pisces Austrinus, then that can kind of, then you're guaranteed that you're going to be able to see it. But in a lot of places in northern cities in Canada, a lot of northern places, the horizon would be a lot higher that I'm showing. So what you've got in the case of M30 is a medium-sized globular cluster. It's culminates around 10 p.m. nowadays, so that would be the time to set your alarm and look at it then. You can see it in binoculars when it's near its high point. Any size of a telescope will work. I noted that it had some field stars nearby, including this one here I'm pointing at, that made it seem like it wasn't round. It sort of made it appear to be elongated. You will also be able to see this magnitude 5.2 star 41 cap in the same field of view of your telescope. So that'll actually help you guarantee that you're seeing the right neighborhood. There's that 41 cap star. When you're looking at it, you want to look for, use higher power to resolve the structure. You want to look for its shape, look for the distribution of those stars that I mentioned around it, it's about 27,000 light years away. So that's your set of medium bright, moon tolerant Messiers for autumn. And then next time we'll do our final 4.
Does anybody have any questions from Messiers? Has anybody actually viewed any of the Messiers we've talked about today? Oh, Chris. I'm still working on the easy ones. Well, we hope you're learning something, as well as always, we shared the link for our Messier Minutes document. That's always there. We will also be linking. It's going to be a little delayed for me to edit down the 15-minute segment here, but we will have that linked as well on our website. And just to remind everybody, we are back to bi-weekly sessions of Insider's Guide. So our next one is the 11th. Yes, it's the 11th, right after Thanksgiving weekend. So
I think what I planned is to demo all the really cool aspects of the Stellarium mobile app. So it's one of those apps where it looks great and it does its job, but there's lots of powerful features that are hidden away that if you know where to click and how to bring them up, you can do a lot more with it. So it's a great time to
download that app before next time. Check it out. I found it a little overwhelming at first, so I'm very excited for this. And yeah, that's awesome.
Very good.
I think we got a lot of thank yous. That's about it. Thank you all for coming and joining us every single week we do this. Okay.
Yeah. And keep looking up and wishing for clear skies in autumn before the weather.
And have a great International Astronomy Day this Saturday.